MLS Aces Podcast. This is your host, Tom Sweezy. This is episode 302. Once again, joined with my co-host, Jason Vevang. I actually pointed in the right direction this time. Jason, how are you?
Oh, man, I tried to point back, and I
you were like, I got you, buddy. Oh, I did it again.
It's weird because I'm pointing at a wall. That just does not feel right.
Yeah, I get it. The camera's reversed.
I never understood that. I don't see what the point is. Just whatever, man.
But we are rolling into the end of Leagues Cup, Major League Soccer action coming back this weekend. I mean, it's a good time to be
the Leagues Cup is Major League Soccer action at this point.
I mean, I'm not the first person to make this joke. It is the League Cup now. It is not the Leagues Cup, But we're corny joke for sure. I don't love it, but I had to say it.
I kind of like it.
But we're getting into the weeds of it. The transfer window is ending, and there's a lot of news. So I'm gonna stop the personal catch up here, and we're gonna dive into it because there's a lot of shit going on around U.S. soccer, transfers, Leagues Cup, MLS, domestic cups, and all of it. So first and foremost, I think it's something that we should mention. I don't know how much we're actually going to dive into it unless you have something you specifically want to say, Jason. But obviously this summer's transfer window is when we got the announcement that Major League Soccer has allowed clubs to build their rosters differently, whether they want to go down the quote-unquote DP path, which is the more traditional 3 DPs and 3 U22 initiative spots, or going down that U22 initiative path, which is 2 DPs, 4 U22 initiative spots, and for this summer, $1 million in general allocation money. Starting in the winter, it will be 2 since it's a full season. That math works out there. But clubs had to announce at the end of this window which path that they are going to be going down for the rest of this season. 19 clubs have gone down more of that DP traditional path with 3 DPs and 3 U22 spots. 10 clubs have gone down that more newer U22 path. Again, that's 2 DPs and 4 U22 spots plus some general allocation money. Any thoughts come up with this, Jason, or just more I wanted to announce it for people to know kind of what's going on?
I was more surprised to see a split, almost an even split, not quite, but I kind of expected it to be more traditional, like the 3 DPs. 3 U22s, whereas in this case, and then I tried to figure out why these teams like Miami in the U22. I guess I was probably assuming they wouldn't be, but then there's teams like Philly who's amazing at developing young players. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
But then the Red Bulls, who are also pretty good at it, are in that. So there's not really I was trying to figure out why certain teams picked certain paths, and it might just be their current situation because they can update this. So every season, I think they can update this.
It's every transfer window. So right, so LAFC is a perfect club to give the example of. They went down 2 DPs, 4 U22 spots plus GAM, right? So right. I'm assuming the DPs are going to be sticking with Bouanga and Giroud. And then the Atuesta, he was a DP, but they maybe used that $1 million in GAM that they got to buy down his contract. I think the additional GAM money is actually a pretty sneaky bonus to going down.
Do you think that we're going to see this sort of start to flip to teams picking 2 DPs more often?
I think,
especially with the way the league's going, Marco Reus isn't the DP, and I'm sure we'll get to him later, but if you're able to get quality players like that and not on DP contracts, I could see more push towards U22. Plus, there's a lot more gain from U22 initiative players. When you look at the Fire with John Duran, we're making a lot of money off of that transfer.
And
barely even played for the Fire.
U22 players hit the salary cap different as well, so I also know that's at play. I don't know. I think teams that still want to win, look, to me, ultimately, teams that still want to win are going to probably want to pay as much money as they possibly can to 3 superstars, right? And yes, you can look, we're giving the example of LAFC and Inter Miami, who are both taking this 2 DP path, but ultimately, it is because they also have the advantage of
They're
being
like the exception.
exactly like they have
Like
the
two
advantage of being
MVP players.
cities that players want to go play at, but maybe a club like I don't know. Use NYCFC for example, right? I think actually that's a pretty shitty example. It's based off cities.
Atlanta.
Use Real Salt Lake. Use Real Salt Lake. I don't think people are itching to go to Salt Lake City. But ultimately, Salt Lake are paying Arango a DP deal. Their new DP, which we'll talk about, Diogo Gonçalves, a DP deal. They have 4 U22s on the spot on the roster with Luna, Ojeda, Palacio, and a new winger that they just signed. And ultimately, they can use that $1 million in GAM to buy down a contract of a Matty Crooks or something like that, right? I think that's where it's almost going to be beneficial, and you can see it if at this current transfer window you see a club that sees an opportunity for more U22s or sell-ons or stuff like that, compared to maybe if the path is, we're in a winning window immediately right now, and we don't have that U22 option, and we can not overpay, but we can pay as much as we want for 3 stars and try to do that right now, right? Miami,
like Cincinnati.
Exactly. Cincinnati, I think, is a perfect example of that. Yeah. But it's going to be interesting to, I think, monitor this every window. It's not going to be this major talking point, but every single window this can change. And ultimately, I think it's still a benefit for the clubs. It's still a benefit for the clubs to figure out what they need right now, what they can do in this window, and how for the next 6 months, pretty much, they can maneuver their roster a little bit. And things change throughout the course of a season, right? That's also.
I like the added flexibility it gives to teams. It's not all, there's more options now.
Exactly. Like, look, RSL maybe 6 months ago thought, okay, we're going to have 3 DPs and we're going to try to go win, League's Cup or whatever. Now they're like, okay, we had the opportunity to make a sale, to sell off a DP, make a bunch of money. We can't bring that quality back in, but we signed a lower transfer fee DP, a lower contract DP, bring in a bunch of U22s that we feel like, can transition into maybe where, Andres Reus was, right? It's very interesting. I think each general manager and sporting director are going to handle this all differently. And I feel like it really just comes down to what they can use for their advantage and what they can't. And this just gives more flexibility for that ultimately at the end of the day. But let's I don't know why I started with that news and not maybe the biggest news of the last 2 weeks. That's a Tom Sweezy move.
I mean, technically this isn't signed on the dotted line yet.
It's not signed on the dotted line, but everyone's talking about it as official. And for I think as much as we can say this is official, but the U.S. men's national team do have their next manager in Mauricio Pochettino, Poch. The 52-year-old Argentine came up in coaching in Espanyol, where I think he did pretty well with a lower tiered Spanish club, then got to move over to Southampton, where he again had a pretty good run with a lower tiered English club and kind of kept them playing above their punching class, I guess. Then he was able to go to Tottenham, where I think many people know him from, and get Tottenham, unfortunately not to a trophy for Tottenham fans, but to a UCL final versus Liverpool. Then, obviously, after Tottenham, he goes to PSG, where he does win his first trophies as a manager, a Ligue 1 title, and a few French Cups. And then after that, most recently at Chelsea, where, again, unfortunately, wasn't able to win a trophy at Chelsea, but was able to, do pretty well ultimately at the end of the day. I think Chelsea needs a little bit more help than just the new manager. But, Jason, Mauricio Pochettino.
I don't think their 50 players are going to come in.
Literally, they have an NFL-sized roster, but it's fine. Jason, but Pochettino, I mean, we wanted Klopp. We wanted a big name. I think you and I said that we wanted, someone who can come in and kind of demand and command the locker room a little bit and demand that respect is what I was going for. Do you like Pochettino as the new U.S. men's manager?
Yeah, I mean, I think out of all the names that we've heard, I don't need to list them all. I'm sure everyone's heard many, 5-10 names. I think this is probably the best one that we could have gotten. I think, like, outside of Klopp, which it always felt to me personally like a pipe dream that was never going to happen.
I thought
But
Pochettino was going to be a part of that pipe dream list
I
too.
did as well, which is like why this is so awesome. And I think we could probably spend like 45 minutes talking about this. So I'd try to keep it somewhat brief, especially because again, like it's not technically official, even though every single person has said it's happening, and it's basically all coming down to waiting for Chelsea to figure out their shit.
Exactly.
It just feels like it's always waiting for Chelsea to do something. But
or global soccer is waiting for Chelsea to figure out their shit. That's pretty much it.
But I do think like this will be interesting. Like the fan base reaction is obviously gonna be pretty positive. But like when he releases that first roster, like I don't know, man. People can't talk as much anymore. It's Pochettino. So it'll be fun. I think just seeing I don't know if necessarily like the results are going to drastically change, but I do think the way he's going to manage the players and kind of how we felt towards the end, like if you go back a month of podcasts where we're just like, man, this team just feels like they're already on the team sheet before it even gets announced. Like things like that, I think will be more fluid. I think we'll get more out of some of our players, but I don't know. I think, like you said, he's going to command that locker room. Like he's not someone you're just like, oh, I'm better than you. He's like, you're not actually. Like this guy's got so much coaching experience. He's been around the biggest teams. He's obviously, like you said, he's coached in a UCL final. There's no higher spot for club football than that. And I think one of the things, I'll finish up, but one of the main things that was cool to me was that I think when it was announced, a lot of people assumed like, oh, for the World Cup, and then boom, he's gone. But it sounds like he's going to stick around at least in some capacity for 2028 Olympics. And just, I don't know, that seems cool. I think getting dual nationals will be pretty easier, maybe. I mean, I think Greg did a great job at that, but I think when you have Pochettino asking you to come play for him, it's a pretty good argument. So.
Yeah, look, I think the dual national front, I don't think much changes. The one thing that I can probably give Jurgen Klinsmann credit for was he was pretty good at recruiting dual nationals. I think Greg did the same thing, and I think yes, Pochettino will probably keep that keep that trend going.
It also might help that like picking the U.S. is like you get the U.S. perks and stuff.
Yeah, no,
pretty good perks.
100%. I agree with that as well. I think on the field specifically, I don't think formation-wise or style-wise we're gonna see that much of a difference. You know, he likes to play that 4-2-3-1, that 4-3-3, however you really want to consider it. He's gonna be looking for a pressing style. He wants to get the ball into dangerous areas. Maybe that's where the only difference really I think we'll see from Greg to Pochettino is I think Greg liked to play on the perimeter a little bit too much, where Pochettino likes to force that ball into the box, into the middle a little bit more, which I think would actually definitely benefit this team. Look, ultimately, a lot of these players that we've had and we've talked about were playing club careers or playing at clubs that maybe were a little bit higher than what Greg was doing or had familiarity with ultimately. And that's no shot at Greg. That's just what his career was versus what these players' careers were. And yes, he had his group and he had his guys, and it was probably a very comfortable, great environment. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I think that there's a cap to that we've seen. I think Pochettino has coached in a UCL final. He has coached, whether you want to consider Tottenham as part of this, but he has coached 3 of the best club teams on the planet. He's coached in 2 of the best leagues, if not arguably, people argue on both sides, the best league in the world, whether it's La Liga or the Premier League. And I think he's going to command a little bit of a different kind of respect. I also think he's going to, I'm hoping, I guess, more that he is going to care more about form than he is going to care about, making sure that Luca De La Torre not specifically you, Luca. I'm just random player that popped up in my brain. So sorry about the shot there. But that a guy that, maybe isn't in the best form or maybe not getting the most minutes club wise is just making the roster because that's part of the culture. Like I think,
I 100% agree.
Poch is going to hold these guys to a little bit of a higher level, or I'm hoping that's what he's going to hold them to because he is at a high level. I know some people don't rate him as a manager and don't think he's any good, but look, I think if you can get Tottenham to UCL final, if you're not a complete failure with PSG, ultimately, he did win 3 trophies with them, and you keep a club like Chelsea that hasn't been good. Let's just face it, in the last half decade, keep them within the top 6 or 7 in the Premier League, and he did that. Ultimately, I think he deserves a lot of respect, and I will continuously give that to Pochettino, and I love the move and I love the ambition from U.S. Soccer. Anything else before we keep it going?
No, I agree. I mean, I think like with the form and stuff, I totally think that that's going to be something to look at, especially like with some of our bigger name players, arguably in pretty bad club situations, like Matt Turner and potentially Weston McKennie, whatever is happening over there. But I think not necessarily that they're going to just be gone, but like I think he will look at where people are playing, how they're playing, how much they're playing, and it actually will matter. Whereas it did feel, and I'm not saying Greg didn't do this, right? Like I'm sure he did it to an extent, but it did feel like, Matt Turner was in there regardless of if he's played in the last month, like it did feel like there were some players, and I'm not trying to pick on any players. It just did feel like there were situations that are probably not ideal that they were getting rewarded for.
No, for sure. I mean, look, ultimately, I think we have one player that deserves to be on every roster, no matter the form that he's in, and that's Christian Pulisic, period. I don't think anyone else deserves the same level of credit in that sense because of what he's done, for Milan in other leagues in his career. He's won a Champions League final. What he's done for the U.S. previously, he's been the only player that does consistently show up game in and game out. So I personally think, who?
Anthony Robinson. He's got to be number 2 on that list.
Sure, but I personally, I think it's one name. I think it's Christian Pulisic. Yeah. I don't. If Anthony Robinson was playing left back for Man City week in and week out, sure, he's playing for Fulham. No offense, I love you, Fulham.
Premier League Team of the Week.
Week 1. Great. Week 1. Let's get that transfer. Let's go to Liverpool. Let's go to Fulham.
I'm fine if he's at Fulham, if he's playing every single week and one of their crucial first-team players. If he goes to Liverpool and he plays every 5th game, I like as a Liverpool fan, I'd love to have an American, but I don't want that for him. It's the same league. Point. It's the same competition. If he's playing on Man City, it's not worth it.
I guess my thinking was more if he's a starter or a consistent player.
Yeah.
And he's consistently getting minutes with
Kyle Walker out of here. That sucks.
Yeah. Let's keep it moving. We'll have plenty of time to talk more USMNT, but San Diego FC, they are back in the news. They've hired their first ever sporting director in Tyler Heaps. The 33-year-old Heaps is now the youngest sporting director in all of Major League Soccer, and making me feel like a little bit of a failure at 29 years old here. But between 2016 and 2021, he worked with the USSF as the head of analysis and the director of sporting analytics. Then between 2021 and 2023, he went over to Monaco in France and was the head of their analysts and insights. And then after he left Monaco, he joined the Right to Dream organization, which is obviously the one that owns San Diego FC, where he was the head of recruitment and insights. And now he gets, I'm going to say a promotion within that organization pretty much. And now he gets to be the first ever sporting director of San Diego FC. Not much to talk about here, but I think it's definitely taking a risk in a young guy like Heaps who's never held a position like this before. I know that, I like that it's almost internal, and I know he's had some roles in kind of the planning of San Diego FC heading into year one, like the recruitment of some of the guys that they've gotten from Europe so far, and Chucky Lozano and all of that. So he's familiar with what's going on. So I like that it's almost, he was part of the signings for the most part already, and he's going to kind of continue to build that out in his vision, and hopefully, a manager is the next one of the next things checked off their list. But I like it. I have nothing against him. He has the resume for it ultimately at this point, and it's just a wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's been promoted like every 4 years he's worked. So, like, I mean, I think also being director of sporting analytics or head of analysis and insights at Monaco, like those are sort of similar roles. Like, obviously they're not as big as sporting director.
Yes.
But it's not like this guy is looking at players for the first time and trying to evaluate talent. Like he knows what he's doing, and he clearly is good at it. The way he's kind of shot up these jobs. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know personally anything about him, but like the fact that this is his resume, like I'd be like, damn, this guy knows what he's doing. So
the only other thing that I know about him is husband to Lindsey Horan. So shout out Lindsey Horan. Awesome baller. That's all I got to say about Lindsey Horan. Well, she's more than an awesome baller. She's a USMNT legend, but
World Cup winner.
Now they get to, Lindsey and Tyler get to, I guess plant their home in San Diego, California. I would love to do that. So shout out to
San Diego. She's still in Paris, I think.
Well, I guess their permanent home, right? Not the club home during the year or not why. But San Diego.
Hey, maybe we see her transfer to NWSL.
Maybe San Diego, yeah. Why not get home? Let's continue to build up the NWSL with this. Let's get the Stars back home. Best league on the planet. All right, let's keep it going. The last piece of
sad news.
We're gonna finish up the U.S. soccer news segment with some sad news.
I guess it's not sad. It's a happy, good news, but like.
It's sad.
Bittersweet. It's bittersweet.
It's sad. Dax McCarty, he's announcing his retirement. Well, he announced his retirement at the end of the 2024 MLS season. The 37-year-old will retire after his 19th professional season. McCarty has played 546 career games and counting. I think Atlanta have technically at least 9 games left of the season. So 546 career games across FC Dallas, DC United, the Red Bull, Chicago Fire, Nashville SC, and Atlanta United, with 25 career goals and 54 career assists. He is a 2-time MLS Supporter Shield winner, and he won both of those with the Red Bulls in 2013 and 2015. He's a 2-time MLS All-Star, 1-time MLS Best 11, and then he also had additional 13 caps with the USMNT, where he won a Gold Cup. And ultimately, look, I said this in a tweet, and I'll say it again here. Major League Soccer has had, if there's one position, maybe like outside of goalkeeper, that I really feel like there has been generational star after generational star at, I'm going to say it's defensive midfield. And for me, I know I came into MLS a little bit later than the 90s and like early 2000s guys. But for me,
you didn't even start watching when you were 4?
Exactly, right? But I can sit here and I can say Kyle Beckerman, I can say Ozzy Alonso, Diego Chara, and Dax McCarty has to be in that group. Like those 4 are like
that's like the Mount Rushmore of.
That's my Mount Rushmore of D-mids. That's my Mount Rushmore of D-mids. I know, right? Chris Armas was a part of it and all that. I didn't get to see Chris Armas play. I'm sorry, Chris, but ultimately that's my 4 Mount Rushmores of D-mids in MLS history
that's
right
now.
MLS
2.0, 3.0. Mount
exactly, and it's just they all were different. They all played the game in their own style, and they all oppose their will on opposing teams. And Dax McCarty's an absolute legend. I hate throwing the word legend around, but it's so true. I mean, I think he's one of only 10 players to play in over 400 MLS games. I think he's
I looked it up. He's 3rd all time with like.
There you go, 3rd all time in MLS games played. That's
I think Kyle Beckerman is 490 something, and Nick Rimondo's at like 514.
Okay, so of field players, he's 2nd all time in MLS appearances. That's even more of a wild stat to me. So Dax McCarty, a legend. Thank you for what you've done. You were an absolute menace on the Red Bulls, and that's how I'm always going to remember you as an NYCFC fan. Jason, I'm sure you have your own fire memories. But
yeah, it was awesome having him on the Fire, man. I'm going to miss just having him in the league. He's been, hey, you know what? If he wants a coaching job, I'm calling Joe Mansueto tomorrow.
I mean, I already put it out there. Apple TV needs to get this guy with Sasha and Bradley Ray Phillips.
Oh, that would be great. But I would much rather him manage the Chicago Fire.
But anything else you want to say about Dax before we roll on?
Honestly, I don't know what else to add. Like, just an incredible player. Like you, I mean, for the entirety of my watching experience of MLS, he's just been a staple of it. So. And I think we've seen that with a couple guys who've retired recently. It's just like kind of like a gut punch when I heard about this one. I was like, oh man, it doesn't like the whole reason it's sad is because it makes me sad. He's probably great, man. He's probably happy. Good for him. But
makes me
like,
feel
what
old.
A career.
Not gonna lie. Between like, you know, Ozzy Alonso and Steve Birnbaum and Ramondo and then Beckerman and you know, honestly, I think the last one for me that's gonna hurt is Diego Chara. Once he's gone, I think my version of MLS that I first started watching is like dead ultimately at that point. But you know, it is what it is. Let's continue into the MLS transfer talk. I know we've done it every single week, but it's a transfer window. Sorry, folks, we got to do it. I'm going to try to roll through some of these a little quickly, but I think some of these are important to talk about. And one that's important to definitely touch on here is FC Cincinnati signing striker Nicolas Gioacchini as a DP on loan from Como in the Italian Serie A. Obviously, you know, if you watched MLS in recent seasons, Gioacchini just left St. Louis in January. He joined Como on their promotion push from Serie B to the Serie A, and now he is back on a DP deal. He's a USMNT international. He won the US Open Cup with Orlando City in 2022. He left St. Louis after a full season with them, and now he's back. Obviously, he's only occupying a DP loan spot because of the buyout of Aaron Bupenza, and that's really the only way that they could get a striker on the books for the pretty much the 6 months left of, or you know, roughly 6 months left of the season. So it's not that he's going to permanently occupy a DP spot, but it's just the only way they can get him in. But obviously, I'm going to kind of just take Cincinnati overall after this transfer window, because I think we're at a point where we can kind of look at the rosters now, what they look like. I think Cincinnati got better. I think Gioacchini, most players are an upgrade from what Bupenza did for Cincinnati, but Gioacchini, obviously an upgrade. You know, Awi Azam, who we talked about, he's looked good, and he's going to give some additional support to that back line, and Miles Robinson and Ian Murphy and all of that. You know, Cincinnati, I don't know if they got as good as other clubs in the Eastern Conference, but definitely better after the summer transfer window.
Yeah, I mean, they're filling the holes that they either kind of created themselves or got really unlucky and got created for them. So, I mean, you just, like, as someone, you know, as a team that's really obviously competing hard and competing for, you know, Supporter Shield, MLS Cup, stuff like that, you know, big trophies, they have to be always making these moves kind of. And I think with some of the, you know, we talked about it with the back line, you know, injuries and obviously Bupenza, you know, not working out. Brandon Vasquez obviously left in the off season. So like this hole was starting to kind of become a thing at striker. And I think Gioacchini fixes that, does make them better, like you said. And I think for them, it gets them kind of back. I mean, not that they're not, like, aren't they still leading? No, they're almost leading the conference. They're second to Miami, but like they're basically, they're fine. But like, it does feel like it's like, okay, now we're back on track. Maybe because the MLS season was like paused, it feels like all this happened, and it's like, all right, now they can hit the ground running in the second half.
Yeah, look, I mean, ultimately, yes, you can't sit here and blame like the injuries on anything with this team, you know, right? Bupenza was a bust. Gioacchini is their attempt at just staying within a trophy hunt, and no, he's not going to produce like a DP, but maybe he just gives you that additional bump and production at striker where you don't need to rely on Yuya Kubo to do it. And I love Yuya Kubo and what he's done this year, but he's not the answer to fill in everywhere on the field. But look, you have Miles Robinson back now permanently after a summer of international games, and you have a new center back in. And I think ultimately Cincinnati are in a good spot to win a trophy, whether that's Supporter Shield, whether that's MLS Cup. I think that they have the possibility to do it, and that's all, if you're a fan of this team, you can ask for at the end of a transfer window.
Hey, I think if you are a fan of Cincinnati, you're coming out of the window pretty happy, I think, with the additions.
Yeah, they did all that they could at the end of the day. And Gioacchini, again, not a bad striker, just not a DP, but you did what you could. Especially after Cincinnati, reports coming out from Tom Bogert that they've realistically tried to sign Josh Sargent, Weston McKennie, and a few others, and it just ultimately didn't work out. Nothing against them, just, time ran out. They weren't willing to spend 25 on Sargent, but they offered 20 apparently. They're willing to spend money. And I think this definitely opens up a possibility for this winter to be very fun for FC Cincinnati and FC Cincinnati fans. Just obviously hope if you're a fan, you're hoping a trophy and the fun winter is part of the equation. Just a few to roll through here, Jason. I'm sorry to roll through this one quickly unless you want to say something. But the Chicago Fire, they traded for left wing back Ariel Lassiter from CF Montreal for $75,000 in allocation money with another potential $75,000 in GAN if certain incentives are hit. The Columbus Crew, they've traded for goalkeeper Abraham Romero from LAFC for $50,000 in general allocation money for some goalkeeper depth. Colorado Rapids, they've waived center back Abubakar Keita after he's returned from loan in Ireland. The Philadelphia Union, they've transferred midfielder Saunders Ngabo to Danish club AC Horsens after he's, really only played for the Philadelphia Union too. One to stop on here, New York Red Bulls, they have signed central midfielder Felipe Carvalho on a one-year loan from Grêmio in Brazil. The 27-year-old Uruguay national team midfielder will occupy a DP spot while on loan with the Red Bulls. He has a pretty long career, 232 career games between Grêmio and Club Nacional with 26 goals and 13 assists. He's won titles in Uruguay. He's won titles in Brazil. He was the Uruguay Primera Division Player of the Year back in 2022. Again, 7 caps for the Uruguay national team. They needed an upgrade at central midfield after the departure of Frankie Amaya, and I think they did that with this move.
Yeah, I think the Rebels are kind of in that interesting spot where they're definitely trying to go all in, it seems like. But
I'll argue that, but yes.
They're keeping their cards, tight.
If they wanted to go all in, they would have signed a DP striker, if you ask me. Or they would have gone and signed someone to put the ball in the back of the net besides Lewis Morgan. But that's my take.
Oh, you don't like Dante Van Zier?
Oh, yeah, Dante Van Zier's killed it. He's killed his career.
No, definitely not worked out for them. But, look at where they are in the conference. They're 4th. I don't know. They're a weird team. I don't hate the move, but, I think it's actually a pretty good move. I think it will make them better. It will kind of solidify the midfield. I think when Emil Forsberg is back, they did actually look very good with him. So, and he seemed very comfortable in MLS. So, yeah, I think the team has talent. Like you said, there's holes, but, I don't think they're, winning supporter shields. But
no, look,
maybe a year or two, one more transfer window.
When aren't the Red Bulls a year or two away if they just make the move and if they just sign the player? It's just
all right. Well, we don't need your NYCFC hatred of them to come out here, okay?
No, in all seriousness, if the Red Bulls somehow could have bought out Dante Van Zier, bought him down, whatever it is, because clearly he's not a starting DP level quality striker in Major League Soccer, or it's just not right now, not with this team, whatever. If they signed a DP 9 along with Carvalho, you get Forsberg back after some time off. He's been injured. It sucks. You pair him with Lewis Morgan, who's producing as a DP, not on a DP contract. You have, a team that's holding up pretty well along the back. this seems like it could have been a year where the Red Bulls could have seriously gone for it. Been a dark
You could
horse.
also argue that this year there are already so many teams that are so good that it might be the like one of the. But I don't think that's going to change actually. Like I think we're in an era of MLS where it's like there are going to be 5 or 6 teams that could legitimately win. You know, like that
For
are
sure.
that good. So
I think. Look, I'm coming from the MLS brain, not the NYCFC fan brain. I would like to see the Red Bulls actually go for it this winter. Hang on to, obviously, you're going to hang on to Carvalho. You're going to hang on to Forsberg, see what you can do with Lewis Morgan, and get rid of Van Zier, do your contract buyout on him, whatever, sign a DP9, and the rest of the team, if it's pretty much there, maybe John Tolkien's gone, but if it's pretty much there, I think this team can compete for the top of the Eastern Conference. They just need that 9, which they've needed for years, but whatever. The Red Bulls have also loaned out 20-year-old center back Juan Mina to Portuguese top division club CF Estrella as well. Real Salt Lake, they continue their busy summer transfer window. They've placed left back Brian Oviedo on MLS waivers. I think with some additions along the back line, that move kind of makes sense, especially since he hasn't really been able to get on the field too much this season. But the big move for them is that Real Salt Lake have also transferred winger Andres Gomez to Ligue alongside Stade Reims. The Colombian DP attacker now is going to head to France on a deal that's initially worth $11 million with add-ons that could bring this up to $13 million. This season, he has 13 goals and 8 assists in 25 games. I mean, he was producing at an extraordinary level. I understand why RSL makes the move, but I don't love it for their trophy chances this season. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit, just with us, whatever, privately. But I feel like I don't know, like the additions. Obviously, this window were kind of heavy in the attacking side, so it does seem like they were trying to fill this hole, knowing that this was either a possibility or they were trying for it. I mean, that's a lot of money, so it's a pretty good deal. But like you're saying, if you're going for the trophy, it's not necessarily the greatest time mid-season to lose one of your top contributors, and just be like hoping for one of the 3 or 4 other attacking players they signed to just kind of pan out. But I mean, we'll see if one of them, even if one of them works, it's fine. In
literally
$13 million richer, so
literally
11 million.
Gomez was producing at an extraordinary rate, and it's weird that I feel like I didn't even blink at an $11 million transfer fee, where a few years ago it would have been like, oh, a double-digit transfer fee number. That's ridiculous. But it's like 11 million now. Like,
yeah, I'm not even thinking twice.
It's casual now. Come on, it's 11 million.
But I mean, you also could argue that like the reason he's performing at such a high level is the fact that Chicho Arango is like absolutely dominating right now, and probably. I mean, obviously, not to take anything from his talent, and obviously he's great, but like Chicho Arango playing at the level that he is making everything so much easier for everyone on RSL, including the defense and everything. But like, there's a chance you bring in someone with just a fraction of Gomez's talent, maybe, or what they might think is the same, and you don't really miss a beat, so it could work. But looking at it as like where are they right now, losing a key contributor is a little scary, considering like I just said, the amount of teams that are actually kind of competing for this trophy.
Yeah, and look, for RSL to legitimately still be trophy contenders, ultimately, at the end of the day, this could all be a moot point. To your point, Jason, if Arango still produces like an absolute baller for the final stretch of the season and into the playoffs, if Diego Luna's doing the same, if Diogo Goncalves, the new Portuguese attacking mid, kind of translates the way that I think many people are projecting him to translate into Major League Soccer, and then they signed 3 new wingers on top of it. Whether it's Lachlan Brook, Dominic Mark Zuck, or Benji Michel, if one of them can even probably produce at like half the rate of what Gomez was doing along with Goncalves at the 10, I mean, RSL, I still think legitimately could make a run in MLS Cup and wouldn't surprise me at all. But RSL, busy window. I think they've done it all that you possibly can do in a singular transfer window, and good for them. I like to see what this newish ownership group is doing over in Salt Lake City. The LA Galaxy, they've signed attacking midfielder Marco Reus from free agency. The 35-year-old former German international will not occupy a DP spot, as you mentioned before, Jason, but obviously, if you've paid attention to global soccer in the last decade, you know who Marco Reus is. 582 career games, mostly at Borussia Dortmund. And obviously last season, making a run with Dortmund to the Champions League final, where they did lose to Real Madrid. But last season, he had 19 goal contributions and 2,300 minutes played across all competitions. He's won it all pretty much from an individual trophy standpoint, an individual award standpoint, to a team trophy standpoint, to doing it at the international stage. Marco Reus is one of the modern legends of soccer, period. And, he is the next star to head to LA, and specifically the LA Galaxy. And I think, again, it's a piece that only makes a club better for a potential cup run. And the Galaxy, I don't know if I am as confident as maybe I would say in some other teams, even like in RSL, but I think the Galaxy definitely have the possibility to go on a cup run.
I mean, that's the number one seed in the West currently.
Are they really? I seriously, the MLS standings out of my brain right now.
I keep a tab open on my computer every single day. I never have closed that tab. It's so hard.
Yes. Yeah. Well, look, even with them number one in the standings, I still think there's another team in LA much better than them right now.
I mean, it's by a point, right? Ahead of that team you're talking about.
Yes.
I think it's cool to see. I've always liked him as a player. I think it's cool. I think one of the interesting points, at least, is that with the Galaxy, he's not going to be necessarily asked to do like a crazy amount. Like, he's not going to have to come in and carry this team. He might come off the bench in some games. He might come off the bench all the time. He might start. I don't really know what Greg Vanney's plans are, but I think with Paintsel, Gabriel Peck, obviously Ricky Puig, like that team and their attacking talent, I don't think I've ever questioned. Like this season, their ability to score is impressive.
Not including Jovic at striker. I know I think he missed most of League's Cup due to an injury, but if he comes back, Diego Fagundes is having a great season. The attack is fantastic. There's nothing against the LA Galaxy attack.
Which makes me like this move not being a DP, and for such a talented player. Obviously, he's 35 years old, which isn't, the ideal, but I think this move is great. Like I'm pretty excited to see what he can do with the Galaxy. He's one of those, massive name Galaxy players. Just put it next to all the others. But I think, if he was coming to, I'll just throw the fire under the bus, I guess. Like he'd be asked to like do everything, right? But like going to the Galaxy is like a perfect spot because he's gonna be able to have the time to fit in and figure out the roles. And I think Greg Vanney's going to have the time to be able to put him in when he wants and figure it out while they're also competing for a trophy with obviously many other teams.
No, for sure. And I think that's the key, is to bring in a guy like this on a TAM deal once you have a roster built. And I think it's something that the Galaxy have done. Try to do the opposite. It's before, right? It's been try to bring in maybe the superstar and then build a roster around them, but it hasn't worked out. This is the opposite. You have, you already have a successful team, a team doing well, and then we bring in the bolstering support and leadership of a Marco Reus. And, ultimately, I think it's only going to make the Galaxy better. And if we get 2 seasons out of Marco Reus, then we are lucky enough to say we got to see Marco Reus in Major League Soccer. Yeah. But also the LA Galaxy, just super quickly, they've loaned out striker Aaron Bobo to USL Championship side FC Tulsa for the rest of the 2024 season as well. Minnesota United, they make some very last minute moves on transfer window day. They've signed attacking midfielder Joaquin Pereira from Tucumán in Argentina's first division. Pereira will occupy a DP spot, and he is Minnesota's second DP signing of the window. And they've also traded for left back Anthony Markanich from St. Louis City for $50,000 in general allocation money. We don't have to talk too much about this. Personally, I just think it's Eric Ramsey getting his guys into his roster and kind of weeding out some of the players that were maybe there before his time and before the new sporting director's time as well. So just bringing in his guys. I think that's ultimately what it is. Charlotte FC. They didn't, like we said last week, didn't get Miggy. They didn't get Stengs. They didn't get Giovanni Lo Celso, but they have signed a DP attacking midfielder in Pep Biel on loan from Olympiacos in Greece. The 27-year-old does arrive on loan at the end of the 2020 until the end of the 2024 season, where Charlotte do have a purchase option if they want to keep around, and I think a loan extension option as well. So Charlotte really controls it all here, which is actually a pretty decent move here. Look, he had some early season success with Zaragoza and Copenhagen. Since the move to Olympiacos, I think it's been a little inconsistent, and he did go on loan to Augsburg last year. That didn't really bring much out, but when he was with Copenhagen, he was the Danish Super League Player of the Year. He was on the team of the season. He won the league. And, ultimately, I think the ability is there. Maybe he just needs to find that home and find a team where he can, just kind of pull the strings with a very fun attack. And it seems like Charlotte is building that fun attack as well. Obviously they've made some of the additions that we've talked about already this offseason, but they've also apparently, according to Tom Bogert, this one's not official yet, they are set to sign free agent attacker Jamie Patterson, who has had a long career in the EFL Championship and also some experience under Dean Smith at Walsall. They've gotten rid of Brent de Jageré, transferring him to Kortrijk in Belgium. And they've also signed an Israeli international winger, but not really going to talk about that too much since he's technically going to Crown Legacy in MLS Next Pro and will probably come up next year to the first team. But Jason, Charlotte FC, a whirlwind of a fucking transfer window. What do you make of all of these moves, their transfer window as a whole? What do you make of Charlotte FC as a roster right now?
I mean, I almost feel similarly to Minnesota, where it's just Dean Smith kind of taking his time to see what he had for the first half of the season, work through it, figure it out. I mean, Charlotte's in a pretty good position right now in MLS standings, in sixth in the East. I think they're a solid team. I think they're just still improving. Obviously, we've seen Charlotte make moves that haven't worked out in some, like, you kind of like almost hurt the team. So I like the fact that Dean Smith kind of feels like he has his eyes set on certain things. It's just a feel I'm getting. But yeah, I mean, this team is definitely improving. It's definitely a much different team from a year ago. So I just think that this transfer window is just – I don't think this will be the last of a busy transfer window of Charlotte.
No, I think Charlotte's always going to have those ambitions because they have, at the end of the day, they have one of the richest owners in the league and an owner that's shown that he's willing to spend money. The only thing that I think I differ from you in the comparison to Minnesota is, to me, Charlotte seems like a team that is I don't think they're getting a home playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. They could, maybe they sneak into like a 4 spot. I don't know. But ultimately they seem like a team that I wouldn't want to play if I'm hosting them or going to Charlotte. I don't know. I think defensively, they're arguably the best team in the league. I think if BL can work out, and you get, Liel Labada back and playing, and Kerwin Vargas can continue to produce like he was, and Ashley Westwood even producing like he was. Karol Swiderski even scoring just a little bit. I personally feel like Charlotte could be a team that maybe has a sneaky upset or two in the MLS Cup playoffs. Maybe that's just me. I don't know, but I like what they've done.
I'm a little afraid of them up against any of the top 3 Eastern Conference teams, but yeah.
Fair, but I think there's an argument for Adelson Malanda or Andrew Privet to be team of the season center backs. and one of them is going to lose their job most likely to Tim Ream, which is kind of sad. I think Jire Urinen, the left back, I think he's been very good. Nathan Burns been very good. Christian Kalina has a shout for MLS goalkeeper of the year. I think this is a team that's very much based in a solid defense, and we've seen a number 10 unlock a run for a team before, aka I'm thinking of Nico Ladero and the Seattle Sounders that summer that they signed him. Maybe Pep Biel is the same type of signing to unlock an attack for a team that is kind of in that middle of the pack and separates it. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying I could see it. I'm going to run through some of these next ones pretty quickly, but Orlando City, they've signed winger Yutaro Tsukada from their MLS Next Pro side, Orlando City B, as well as making a U22 initiative signing for Danish Youth International and central midfielder Hein Gikling Bruseth from the Norwegian First Division. I butchered the shit out of that probably, but on that U22 initiative deal, Tom Bogert's reporting that it was around a $1 million transfer fee for the Norwegian Youth International there. I'm going to roll through some of these, and then we'll go back to the big one there, Jason. But New England Revolution, they've loaned out Ryan Spalding to the Tampa Bay Rowdies for the rest of the 2024 season. Toronto FC, they've loaned out winger Cassius Mayula to the Moroccan First Division side, Wydad AC. And the Houston Dynamo, they've signed 20-year-old striker Exxon Arzu from Real España in Honduras. He's been on loan with their MLS Next Pro side, Houston Dynamo 2, and he will occupy a U22 initiative spot for the rest of the season at least. But the big move to talk about, Colorado Rapids, they have transferred center back Moise Bombito to Ligue 1 side Nice for a reported $7.7 million deal, according to Tom Bogert. There is also going to be potential for $3 million in add-ons for this deal. Obviously, 24-year-old Canadian international defender had a hell of a first half of an MLS season. Got the call up for Copa America, impressed heavily at Copa America, was an MLS All-Star this year. Now he gets his move to a Big Five league over in Europe. Jason, Moise Bombito. It's not Moise. Moise Bombito. What do you take of the move overall?
I mean, I think he wanted this move. I think, overall, this is just awesome for him. I'm happy for him. Like you said, it is the biggest deal for a center back.
In terms of initial fee, yes, because Mark McKenzie was the previous initial fee record for a center back from Union to Genk, but he just got sold to Toulouse in Ligue 1.
Regardless, it's up there with the highest.
He's one or two
center back transfers, and I think it's awesome. It's well deserved. Like you said, he's been balling out this year for Colorado. He's been balling out in the Copa for Canada. He's just a very, very good player. Like I honestly just hope it's going to be a great long career because he is fun to watch. He's rarely do you really have a defender that's just wow, you just watch him play and it's impactful. And I think he's one of those guys. It'll be interesting to see what happens to Colorado without him. I think, they're obviously in a great position. A lot of the moves they've made have really paid off for them. They're still in Leagues Cup, which is awesome. So, yeah, I mean, I like the move. I think it's just fun to see, I don't know, MLS players getting their credit.
Yeah, you know what? I think it's also a move. I'm not going to reiterate anything you said. I agree with it. The only additional thing I would add to that is it's fun to see when maybe players who aren't traditionally brought up in terms of academy, second team, first team, blah, 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 right? He came out of the super draft. He was a guy who was drafted 3rd overall before last season, barely played last year. And under Chris Armas, he's gotten the opportunity to play, and he's produced at such a high level. He's done it on the international stage, and now he's getting his chance. Yes, he's a little bit older. He's 24 now. He's not some 20-year-old kid that's going to get the move and have some years to maybe adjust and whatnot. He has to do it a little bit sooner, but I think he's lived up to the task every single time, and I think he will be successful in a league like Liga. So I'm happy for him, and I'm happy he got that move. That yes, he's been very vocal that he has wanted that move for sure. All right, let's roll into it. Leagues Cup continues to roll on. We saw a wild quarterfinals that ultimately, like we said to start this episode, ended up with 4 MLS teams winning, 4 MLS teams onto the semifinals of the competition. But the Columbus Crew, they did defeat New York City FC in PKs after a 1-1 regular time finish. We had the fastest goal in NYCFC history with Alonso Martinez scoring after, I think it was 16 seconds or something like that. I mean, I'll take
crazy.
it. And then Cucho Hernandez obviously doing what Cucho does and him scoring the goal for Columbus to ultimately be the tying one and push this thing into PKs. Look, Columbus, I'm an NYCFC fan. Columbus was the better team on the day. Ultimately, they deserve to move on, and good for Crew fans in that sense. It was a pretty straightforward game in that front. Anything that I missed from that one?
No, you nailed it. Honestly, like the fact that 3 of these games went to penalties, I almost didn't even realize it.
Bro, I couldn't stay awake by the end of the last one. But,
I did fall asleep.
Philadelphia Union, they defeated Mazatlan in PKs after, again, another 1-1 regular time finish. In regular time, we had goals from Mikel Ure and Jesus Escoboza. The Philadelphia Union, look, give them a ton of credit because they played down a man for roughly 45 minutes in this game after Ty Baribo got a second yellow card that I think was a little harsh. We also got to see a very magical moment, multiple magical moments. Andre Blake seems like he is back to 2022 version of Andre Blake, being a game winner in net, making big saves and doing things to keep the Philadelphia Union, alive in a lot of games that he's playing in, and he showed it against Mazatlan here. But the moment that I think most people are going to remember from this one is Jose El Brujo Martinez, most likely playing his last game for the Union. He was subbed in late. He was given an award, he was given a renounding applause as he entered into the game. He did get to, participate in the PK shootout. He scored his PK, threw up the hearts, the heart hands to the crowd, and it was an awesome moment just to see because El Brujo has been a legend in Philadelphia since he's arrived. He has been one of the best B mids in the league, and most likely that Corinthian sale will happen any day now. But, I don't know. Did you take anything from this game that you were like, Philly's back? Philly got lucky? I don't know.
Dude, I mean, the response to the red card is crazy. Miguel, you're scored in like 2 minutes. I think Philly's definitely in a – I don't know if I want to say like back totally. I mean, I don't know. What did I say last week? They look so much different, so different. Andre Blake just being there is a massive change. He's so good. So as long as he's there, Philly's going to be fine. They're a good team.
I'm not gonna, maybe not fine, but I think as long as he's playing at the legendary Andre Blake level, I think Philly has a chance to win every game that they're in. Ultimately, you need to score goals. Ty Baribo is not going to be playing in the semifinal matchup against Columbus, and we can talk about that one. Columbus hosting Philly in the first semifinal matchup. I mean, no Baribo is a big blow to me. No, I mean, obviously, Jose Martinez hasn't been playing a ton lately, but maybe you don't even have that kind of like magic rub of El Brujo getting his final minutes, final moments with the Union. I don't know. This to me feels like a Columbus Crew win, but I think if Andre Blake stands on his head, I mean, it can very realistically happen, and we could see a completely different result.
I think if Andre Blake is at his incredible best game, it still probably goes to PKs. Like I just feel like Columbus right now is just like a buzzsaw. Like they're just that good. I don't know. Like I outside of that 16-second goal for NYCFC, they looked good. I mean, I think the additions they've had have been working out. DeJuan Jones being in there is cool to see. I don't know. Columbus to me, again, like I feel like it's a win, but you got to play the game for a reason. So
no, for sure. I think Columbus for everything positive we can say about them, they are prone to giving up that absolute disaster of a goal. And if that happens,
they have like 30-second lapses. I mean, think about
100%.
in CCC when Schulte just like let the ball go by him. This is just like
Exactly.
moments where it's like, what? Just like this isn't the team that we thought you were. And then it's like
And
it flips a switch, and it's
Yeah.
like, how are you going to compete against this team? Like,
no, I mean that's what I was about to say. Is I think they flipped that switch. Literally, the words I was going to say, and they produce like the crew that we expect them to produce as. So I give it to Columbus over Philly. I think the Union Magic run ends here. But I mean, ultimately, I think this is actually going to be a pretty good game, especially if Ure and Gazda.
I think if there is no pick today, it's both games. Just watch. People won't listen to this until after, but both are going to be great.
No, you're right. Let's look at the other quarterfinal matchups and semifinal. LAFC, they went on the road and took down the Seattle Sounders 3-0. Goals came from Ryan Hollingshead, Kai Kamara, and
Beautiful Kai Kamara goal.
I mean, Kai Kamara just continues to defy the odds and scores.
We love Kai Kamara, man. Come back to Chicago.
Bro, that's the only team he didn't score for is literally Chicago. But
oh man, nobody scored for that team last year. He did score a little, I mean, given the situation, I definitely went to most of those games, and I would have rather had him starting all of them instead of somebody else.
Look, ultimately, Seattle, they do not have a good track record against LAFC. LAFC have won 12 of the 21 games played against these two clubs. And then in the other, I guess, like Western quarterfinal, the Colorado Rapids. Defeated is a choice word, but they held out as long as they could against Club America. The game went to
PKs. Stephen, man.
The game went to PKs after a 0-0 regular time finish. Went to 9 rounds technically. I put down 10 here. Went to 9 rounds technically. And Zach Steffen saving shit, scoring a PK goal, scoring the winner. I mean, that was a Dan, if you're on the East Coast and you stayed up like me, good for you, because that was a long game. That was a hell of a watch.
Honestly, it's so cool to see. Like Zach Steffen, he looks like he's got his complete confidence back. It's awesome.
Yes.
It's so great to see. It's exactly what I think we were hoping for with this move, and it's definitely paid off because he looks like the old player, the old Zach Steffen. So.
I don't think he's at his MLS goalkeeper of the year level performances yet when he was playing for Columbus, but ultimately I think you have to consider Zach Steffen for the USMNT roster as a part of a 3 goalkeeper group for sure. He's playing much better than he even was at the beginning of the season when he had a few howlers, he had a few bad moments in net, but Zach Steffen's playing fantastic. And look, ultimately, kind of how I feel about the Crew Philly matchup. I feel a little bit similar here with LAFC.
It's a little skewed, but like again, it's a similar situation where if Colorado just I don't know, I still feel the same way. Like if they play amazing, it still could be like a losing PK situation. Like how both Columbus and LAFC just have this full complete teams that are just terrifying. Like I was gonna say great attacks, and I was like, no, the whole team is just so deep.
No, just every level is scary.
Like, where is there a hole in those teams? Like,
look, I agree. I lean towards a Columbus LAFC final. I think that would be a very fun final to watch. I
think any final would be fun, but that one would be great
to once again get that matchup. I think that would be a fun final. And then, look, ultimately, I don't think you can also look past Colorado, though. You outlasted one of the best teams in the region. You've beaten 4 straight Ligue MX sides. I think they have the ability to outlast LAFC once again, especially if Georgie's screaming up the fucking pids at the end of the game, too. I love that. I love Georgie Mihailovic's energy and what's going on in that locker room for sure. So, look, I'm going to pick LAFC, but ultimately I think the Rapids can do it from what we've seen from them in Leagues Cup. let's quickly run through this, Jason. The U.S. Open Cup and Canadian Championships will continue on early next week before we have a chance to drop another episode. So I just want to quickly mention to watch these competitions. We have the Open Cup semifinals. Tuesday, Sporting Kansas City host the Indy 11. There is a world where this matchup actually means a lot, and I want to just quickly say this. So if LAFC defeat the Colorado Rapids in League's Cup, they get an automatic CONCACAF Champions League spot for next year. That means that whoever wins, and LAFC also have to make the Open Cup final as well. But that means if LAFC win their next two games, whoever wins between Sporting Kansas City and the Indy 11 will go to CONCACAF Champions Cup. We could see a USL Championship team making a
I want it so bad.
I want this. If you're an Indy 11 fan, I mean, if you're a Sporting Kansas City fan too, but if you're an Indy 11 fan, which is what I'm rooting for, you are the biggest LAFC fan in the next two games, 100%. You are rooting for LAFC to take down Colorado, take down Seattle again, and do it. But that is the one semifinal. The other semifinal, again, is Seattle hosting LAFC. Seattle just got their asses kicked, maybe looking for a little revenge. LAFC looking to kick the ass of the Sounders one more time and make the U.S. Open Cup final there. And then on the Canadian Championship side, the semifinal second legs kick off on Tuesday as well. Toronto FC will host Forge FC, where Forge are leading the aggregate 2-1 after their victory in leg one. And then the Vancouver Whitecaps are looking to defend their, they're looking to go back-to-back, defend their title in this competition. And they are hosting Pacific FC, where they lead the aggregate 1-0 right now. So that is where we are with the domestic cup situation. Jason, I know you said that your picks for games to watch was the two semifinals, but MLS is back this week.
That is true. I didn't even look.
I have it if you don't have it. I mean, there's two.
You go. You pick one this time. Actually, let me look while you're picking.
You look, and you're not going to pick this one, so that's fine. I'm just going to take this. It's the MLS Aces Derby. It's NYCFC hosting the Chicago.
Oh, yes.
It is that game. It is going to be, hopefully, NYCFC getting back on the winning track in league play and kind of bumping up the standings there. That's what I'm hoping for. But hopefully I filibustered enough for you here, Jason, so you to pick the obvious game that I think is the game of the week.
I mean, I think it's Inter Miami versus Cincinnati.
There you go.
Just a banger of a game. So you know what? With very little preparation on that one, Yep.
It wasn't too hard. It was the team in first place in the East versus team in second place in the East.
Right.
Definitely
major points on the line here.
There's 10-ish games left of the regular season for everyone. Supporter Shield spots are going to be on the line. The trophy's on the line here. So all of these games for, the top 4 or 5 teams in MLS matter. So pay attention this weekend, folks. Jason, anything else before we get out of here?
I'm good.
All right, that's it, guys.
Good and great at the same time. It sounds like
You're good.
I'm great.
Hopefully next week we only have like 1 or 2 transfers to talk about because players can still be sold from MLS to clubs, to leagues with open transfer windows. But hopefully it's not too much there.
We got lots of games to talk about.
We will have a lot of games from Leagues Cup to domestic cups to MLS action and kind of everything in between. So we will be talking about soccer mostly next week, and that is such a glorious thought. So Jason, thank you. I'm excited to chat next week, and we'll get back into the end of the 2024 MLS regular season.